I'm Rod Vagg, and my talk is titled How Did We Get Here? But the topic is basically what the fork is going on with Node. So my goal here is to provide you with enough context of what has happened with Node so that you can have confidence going forward using Node and have a bit of an understanding about where it's heading. So this is an alternative title I wanted to use. Unfortunately, Colin Erig, who's on the TSC, also took this title for a talk that he did. But this is one of my favourite memes of version 4 that came out. This guy tweeted back to me pretty much straight away. Can't you count? But yeah, I'll be a bit more professional than that. Okay, so who am I? I'm on the Node.js Technical Steering Committee. I am on the Node.js Foundation board as the Technical Steering Committee representative, and I get to be called the Chief Node Officer at NodeSource. And NodeSource is a Node service provider. We work with large enterprises who are deploying Node. We build products for enterprise. And we invest heavily in Node because we all come from this community and we believe in it and want to see its success. So I'm happy to tell you a bit about that. That's my alter ego, Eric. You may have interacted with him on GitHub, and I apologize if anything was negative. So the journey, it's really about the journey from version 0.10 to version 4. 0.12 is in there, but it starts back at 0.10. I hope you can read some of this, because this is a timeline I put together of what went down. And we're starting over at this side here with Node version 0.10, finishing up with version 4 LTS. And as Zara said, 4.2.1 is where we're at now. It's divided into 3 different areas of activity. Down the bottom, this is sort of like classic Node from the Giant Node repo, what we've expected from Node for the past few years. In the middle is an independent effort. This is very much about the community doing things to push Node forward. I'll explain that in a minute. And at the top there, we've got the culmination of it all, where these 2 efforts reunited, and what we generally call Convergence under the Node Foundation, leading to Node version 4. Additionally, we can actually divide it up into 3 different eras. And this should be illustrative to explain how we got where we are. The first one I'm calling the Age of Discontent. And it starts somewhere in 0.10. The exact timing is probably around early 2014, when Node activity really started to drop. And there were many of us in Node at the time, and you may have been part of it as well, that we loved Node. We were invested in Node. We couldn't imagine going to a different ecosystem, and we were getting deeply concerned about the future of Node. We wanted Node to be a success, partly for selfish reasons, because we wanted to enjoy Node for longer. We didn't want to, have some other ecosystem come up and take over all the buzz. But Node core was going stale and going through a process that looked like it was dying. There's a lot of chatter out there about how Node was descending and probably becoming more irrelevant. So this was the Age of Discontent. Now, during this time, there was a lot of private discussion going on, mainly with Giant, who were the corporate stewards of Node at the time. And the private discussions were all about how can we change the governance of Node. It's just not working as it is now. How can we move it forward? And this movement was started called Node Forward. It was a GitHub organization. You can find it still there, Node-Forward. And it was a way of using community resources to drive Node forward. So there was attempts to do things like make new discussion and help forums for people. We started an effort to build whole new build and test resources for Node Core, and we did all of that in Node Forward initially. We publicly launched that in August, and at the time there was actually a fork of Node in that. There was a Node-Forward /Node. That lasted for about a day publicly because there was some mild legal pressure to shut that one down. Can't call it Node, apparently. Anyway, this area culminated in the Node Advisory Board, forming, and this was a business thing that Joyent did, and they pulled together some business partners and some Node community leaders. I think, Charlie, you were involved in that, yeah? So this was going on, and this was part of helping Joyent through this process. But ultimately, it was just too little too late. And let me get that back again. And that led to IOJS, which I'm calling the Great Leap, or alternatively, the forkening. So the frustration got to the point where it was just like, there's nothing else we can do. And so the fork began, and that was IOJS. And that happened in early November, and led up to IOJS version 1 release in January of this year. And then during that time, we had additional things going on. So Joyent moved forward really slowly. They announced an intention to form a foundation. Unfortunately, none of that discussion there involved the people in the middle here. It was all Node Advisory Board and some business stuff, and it was just really disconnected. And then we had Node version 0.12 come out, and that was at around Node Summit time in February. And there was people like Aaron Hammer calling it dead on arrival. It was just, people weren't enthused by it. It seemed like it was rushed out because there was so much pressure, and part of the pressure came from IOJS. So then we moved on to the summer of Convergence. So this is the era of the Node Foundation. So what happened was that there were business partners that were wanting to invest in Node and wanting to help Node move forward, but they weren't willing to do it without both of these groups included. And so the point came where the IOJS technical committee agreed to join the foundation efforts. And as soon as that happened, the foundation pretty much kicked off. There was an announcement that it was happening, and everything just came together. And then we had a convergence of the two technical committees. There was a lot of overlap between the two. And then we worked from there towards version 4. And that was it seems, for me, that was a really long time. It's actually not that long, but that between IOJS version 2 and Node version 4, there's a lot of effort in there in getting it all together. But I'm really proud of the effort that the whole team did to get there. And now we're at Node version 4 LTS, which I'll explain a little bit soon. So Discontent, I want to justify this, talk a bit further about why people were not content with where Node was, because it might sound a little bit childish. This graph it doesn't say everything, but it's a good proxy for the issues that people were concerned about. It's number of commits to the Node core per month. And Node version 0.10, which was at the beginning of 2013, this was actually the peak of Node activity in terms of commits per month. You can graph it all the way back out, and that's the peak. There was another peak a little bit early on, but that was the top. And that was great, and there was this period that was pretty good. But then we get into this decline, and it was pretty steady. And you could see some of the rot that was building up by looking at the number of pull requests that was just stale. Like hundreds of pull requests, hundreds of issues that were just not being addressed. It was really concerning. And then when we had the IOJS fork, what happened is that there was this initial burst of activity, and a lot of that was people who were ready to contribute, and they were trying to contribute, but they just couldn't find a way into old Node. So IOJS came along and had an avenue to commit. There was this, it was friction-free, basically, to get commits in. So that was that big spike there. And now we've moved on to a more steady pace, and I would expect that sort of pace to continue. I see no reason to be concerned about the pace of change. So commits per month it's not everything. Like, it's not even the greatest metric, but it's a good proxy for some of the things that are going on. Was the detour necessary for IOJS? It was painful for everyone. It was a reluctant fork. Nobody really wanted to do it, but was it necessary? Well, this is what we were trying to achieve. We wanted more rapid iteration and more frequent releases from core. It just slowed right down. It looked like a dying platform. We wanted closer tracking of V8 releases. Node had become irrelevant to V8, and people were itching to use some of the new features that were coming into their browsers that just weren't available in Node Core. And we wanted contributor and community ownership of the project, and we wanted an end to the BDFL model because that's what we saw as the fundamental thing that was broken about the project. BDFL is benevolent dictator for life, and Linux is the classic example of this, where the project is basically, there's one guy that can say yes or no to anything. And we wanted to enter that. It just wasn't working. So what did we achieve out of all those concerns? Well, this is another graph. It looks similar to the one before about commits, but this is the number of committers, the number of unique committers per month to Node Core. So if you take all the commits in the Git repository each month, and then you take how many unique people are in there, this is what you find. And I'm calling it old Node and new Node now, just to be a little bit less controversial. But what we've found is that we've moved beyond even the beginning of Node 0.10. And this is one metric that I'm really proud of, and I want to see continue, and I want us to maintain and even increase that level of contributorship, because this is a sign of the people that use Node being able to take ownership of Node and drive it forward. So people know that they can go to the core repository and make contributions, as long as they go through the process and it actually aligns with what Node's trying to do. But they can also have a say in what Node is, so there's a big discussion you can be involved in there. This one here is number of releases per month. Initially in version 0.10 we had a lot of releases that were just fixing things because 0.10 was a really big release and there was a bunch of fixes. But this period here, that's really sad. We had a couple of months where there wasn't even a release. And it's not like there weren't changes to merge and push out, but it was just not happening. We've kicked it back up now, and we're maintaining a pretty stable level there. I would expect that to increase as we increase the number of release lines that we're managing, and I'll talk about that soon. But this is, there's activity. When you contribute to core, your code actually reaches people pretty quickly. You don't have to wait for 12 months or 2 years for your code to actually hit the public. And on the reverse of that as well, it's you get to provide feedback in a quicker cycle as the changes are happening in core. So if there's things happening that you don't like or stuff's breaking for you, that feedback loop is much more rapid now. This is V8. This talks about the concern that we had about losing sight of V8. 0.10 came out with a pretty modern version of V8, but by the time we got to 0.12, the version of V8 that was in use by most people, and the version that a lot of people here are probably still using with 0.10, was over 2 years old. And when you think about the V8 release cycle matching Chromium of every 6 weeks, it had become irrelevant. It had become really difficult to find and fix things. It had become that the V8 team didn't care about Node by that point. And we heard this when we did IOJS, because when we launched IOJS, we had the V8 team knocking on our door pretty quickly because they were really interested in getting involved and having Node be part of their ecosystem because it had just lost it. Even Node 0.12 came out with an older version of Node. There's some technical reasons for that, but still, the justification's pretty poor because it was irrelevant still. So we're trying to keep up with V8. There are some compromises we have to make, which make this a little bit tricky, but we've improved the relationships with the V8 team. We now have the V8 PM on our weekly TSC calls. We have a number of Google people who are core contributors to the project. They're using Node internally at Google, and they're starting to care more about Node. And the two-way feedback between Node and V8 is really, really encouraging now. Open governance. This is the big deal for me. I think this will be the success of Node. And what we've got now, we've got 45 separate collaborators, we call them. And these are people who have commit rights to the core repo. They can close issues, they can merge changes. And we have this system of governance and managing issues where the contributors control and own the project. So there's a constant discussion going on, and it works really well. There's this huge diversity of views and expertise, but people know how to work together. They know where to find the different expertise they need across the team, and things just get done, and it works really well. the intention is to not have a single point of failure. We don't want to have, like the BDFL model, where one person, your truck factory is one, somebody gets hit by a truck, you're down. We're pretty much at the point now where Node doesn't have a single point of failure in terms of people. We can move forward, even if somebody was to just drop off the internet on the core team. And the interesting part of this process, you might think it's a bit crazy with all these people and Node must be just changing all the time because all these people are throwing things in. There's a restraint forced by consensus. We have a consensus-seeking model in core, and there's this restraint that happens because you need to find agreement to get changes in. And you know what it's like when you have a meeting. The bigger the meeting is, the less you get done. And that actually works here, and it works really well because we want Node to be small. We don't want it to be bloated with features. We don't want a huge standard library. And this process really reinforces that because you've got people coming from all different perspectives trying to pressure Node to be small and go forward without bloating in all sorts of weird directions. So this is a great process. You'd be surprised at how well it works. This is the core team, 45 people who have access to the core repo and are in constant discussion. There's more people beyond this that communicate and collaborate day to day on the repo. We're expanding this constantly and always on the lookout for people that are making meaningful contributions. Do we have anybody here on this list that's here in the house today? No? These people are from all over the world. You'll see different names that are, lots of foreign names there, but lots of Europeans, some people from Asia, a bunch of Americans, but this is a really diverse group. Lots of different expertise here, and lots of different passions. Like you've got Dominic Denicola and Petka Antonov, who's Bluebird, and Dominic's Mr. Promises. And these people are in the discussion with people who are also passionately callbacks only. And that's a really good tension to have. And we're always looking for ways to increase that. What else did we achieve? Well, we have the Node Foundation now. And the reason this is good is because it is actually literally a foundation for us to stand on. We know we have the legal backing, we have people looking out for all of the things we need to care about, and we can just move forward. So the technical steering committee has day-to-day responsibility for the project. The Node Foundation board exists to facilitate that. And one of my reasons for standing for the position of TSE representative for the board was because I had a concern that we would have some members of the foundation that were a bit more activists and they wanted to get a bit more involved. I've been pleasantly surprised with how good it's worked out. These companies are investing large amounts of money in Node, and it's not to control Node, it's actually to invest in the future of Node because they trust what we're doing. So, good on these companies. Just quickly, future Node, what does it have in store for us? Well, this might look confusing, but it's even harder to describe in words. I've been trying to do this for blog posts and stuff, but so this is the release plan we've got. It's very intentional and it's very time-based, and so it gives you predictability. You know what's coming up, and you can plan around that. It's particularly useful for companies that need to plan. So what we have in the middle there is our master branch of Node. That's where all the activity happens. And then on the side, we have these stable release branches that come off. And every 6 months, we cut a new stable branch. And these are the new Semver major versions of Node. Everything's all Semver here. So we've got Node version 4 now. It started it actually started in September, I think it was. And then in 6 months' time, we've shortened this one here, but we intentionally went for a really quick cycle here. Version 5 is going to come out probably early next week. It would have been this week, but we've been really busy with stuff doing that. So version 5 will be out next week, and then that'll live for around 8 months, but 6 months after it starts, in April of next year, we'll get version 6. And then 6 months after that, we'll get version 7. The catch here is that each of these stable versions contains a single version of V8. We're not going to be upgrading V8 during that time frame. One of the lessons we learned during IOJS is that when you upgrade V8, you break the NPM ecosystem. At a minimum, people have to recompile all their native add-ons. But at its worst, V8 do stuff to their internal API that just breaks everything. And that's really painful. So the compromise is this 6-month window. We're not doing 6-week window. 6-month window where we guarantee you that your native add-ons that you've compiled, that you use, don't need to be recompiled. And there's going to be no breaking changes. The semver major is consistent, but there will be feature additions and patches. So the semver minor number and the semver patch number will increase and change over time. And then in the mix there, we have this thing called LTS, which is long-term support. So LTS focuses on stability and security. It's for people that need predictability and that need the stability for deploys. There's a high bar for changes. You don't get things into LTS releases easily, and they generally have to be proven. And it comes from our need to build trust. We need to build trust with the community and businesses that Node can be used for serious things, that this is a serious platform. So LTS will live it takes over from every second stable branch during October. So we've had LTS for version 4 started at version 4.2. LTS for version 6 will start at 6.50, whatever it is. And then you will only have the patch version increasing after that. And LTS will be supported for 18 months plus an additional 12 months of maintenance. So that gives you the assurance that you can use that version of Node for that long, and it'll be supported, it'll get security updates. And the other one is stable, which are these 6-monthly things. That's for the incremental progress. It's where you have feature additions, no breaking changes during these. Single revision of V8 and regular releases. We don't want to build up commits in the repo, so there'll be releases of every 1 to 2 weeks from stable branch. The key here is that if you need the certainty and your upgrade process is difficult, don't use one of these interim ones. So version 5 is probably not for you if you are in a large company or you have really complex deployments. I'd be sticking with version 4. And then there's this thing in the middle that we haven't quite figured out yet. We will do Canary or Master or Next. We're not sure what we're going to call it. But this will be off our master branch. We'll have some sort of release cycle for this. It'll probably be automated. It'll track V8 over time. It'll be difficult to version because we're reserving semver strictly for our stable and LTS releases. We don't want these versions to conflict with that, so we'll probably be using some pre-release thing on the semver number. It'll be frustrating for native add-ons because of V8. It's going to break. But there'll be people that use it, and those testers will actually give us a smooth transition to the next stable, and it'll satisfy the restless. And I know what that's like. I was young once. I used to use was a Debian unstable on my laptop, and it used to break every 3 days when I did an upgrade. But I've evolved to a Mac now. Like, seriously, I've gone from Linux to a Mac simply because I need the predictability. That's what LTS will do for people. You can choose between LTS, stable, or these crazy things. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that will love these. And just quickly, last slide, I think this is the major themes for the next 12 months. These are the things that I think we're going to be focusing on. Stability and quality, this is a big thing. Version 4 of Node, I truly believe, is the best quality code base that Node has ever had. It is a quality set of code that you are using with Node with. Like, when we compare the stability to older versions, it's fantastic. It may not seem stable when you look at the number of releases, but it will settle down as the landscape evolves. Macro benchmarking and performance. Node Core and the Node Core team is really good at micro benchmarking. It's not really good for telling how fast a version of Node is compared to another version of Node. And so we need those numbers that index a lot of different types of performance metrics. Clarification of the core API. This happens now, and it will continue to happen. And this is things like looking at the core API and making sure that it's clarified. There's things like some parts of it that are a little bit vague, different types of arguments that you can use and not use, consistency, all that sort of stuff. So there's this constant discussion about the core API and making it much more clearer and make sense. Hardware will be a big theme. I think we've got the hardware working group, and two members of that group are actually speaking here this afternoon. We've got Cassandra and Suze, and this is going to be a big deal. And you may think it's just about hobbyists, but it's actually really important for the future of Node, and I think that this is going to evolve and become a really important part of what Node is doing. Engagement, we want to see engagement with the community go up. We want to see people here contributing, and we want to see the conversation expand. Expansion and refresh of the core team. There's no expectation that the core team's going to remain consistent over time. People will drop out, new people will come in. We need to pull from the ecosystem different perspectives, just maintain that diversity and the vibrance of it. Openness and transparency, a core value of what we do. And lastly, ecosystem tooling. And this is a big thing for me, because I'm involved in a company that is targeting this specifically. We want Node to be a serious platform that provides a serious alternative to more mature platforms such as the JVM. Large companies, when we go and talk to them, their operations teams are saying, where's my fancy tools to inspect my runtime? And we don't have that level of maturity yet. So there's a lot of companies now that are investing in this, and NodeSource is one of them. Shameless plug. I'm really proud of our team at NodeSource building this. This is NSolid, our flagship product. It's one of these tools that I'm talking about with the ecosystem, providing tools to professionalize Node. And this is a runtime management platform. You can check it out if you go to nodesource.com. Anyway, that's it. I think I'm probably out of time. But are there any questions? No questions?
Over here.
Oh, she's going to ask questions.
Sorry, come on over here. Ashley, do you want to come up stage and do your thing? You can do your thing and then I'll ask the questions. Okay, great. Sounds great. Okay, and also for the people standing in the back, there's plenty of seats down here, so come on and join us in the front. Rod, come join me by this beautiful Empire sign.
Oh,
I know, I'm sorry. It's hard out there.
Zara sent us all a list of questions that she might ask us, and we're all extremely intimidated by it.
Yeah. Sorry, it happens. Okay, can you give me 3 words that describe living in your 16,000-person hometown?
Green. I live in a really beautiful part of Australia. Laid back. Australians like to describe themselves as laid back. We're pretty easygoing, except when we're in our cars. We're even worse than Americans in our cars. And another word would be comfortable, I guess.
Comfortable, perfect. That was like many sentences, not 3 words, but good job. Good job.
Hey.
Okay. So coolest thing about being your age?
Okay, this is like one thing I can think of. I look back on my younger self, and I'm kind of embarrassed at how little I knew and how much I thought I knew. So now I feel like I have an idea of how little I know, at least. So that's it.
That's awesome. Okay, and then if you were a hip-hop artist, what would your stage name be?
Oh, goodness. Probably... let's go. I'll go with 30 cent, because the Australian dollar is really terrible. Yeah.
Thank you so much.